Welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show, presented by Hugh Hatrick. Here at Bathurst in the Forest, my very special guest, Ps4live, Rascal, Rabbit, Josh Martin. It's great to have you back on the show. Drive fast and try not to crash.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show. And on tonight's show, we have an incredible special guest. It is, of course, TRL Lightning, Mikhail Hizal. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Hugh. It's a pleasure to be here. And how are you doing? All good?
I'm very well, thanks, and extremely excited to have you on the show. We have a multiple Gran Turismo champion here on the show, which is spectacular. And I know that everybody watching will be desperate to find out how on earth can we compete? What are the ways, what are all your tricks of the trade and secrets of your speed and your success? But it's fantastic to have you on. So a very big welcome from everyone in our community to you tonight. So I will start with a question that I always give every poor guest that comes on the show who's not expecting what I'm about to say. But no, it's a very easy question. How did your love of racing games and how did you start playing racing games?
Wow. I don't know if it's going to be a long story or not, but how shall I say it? Since I was little, I always liked playing around with the toy cars around, and my parents noticed that, and therefore they also bought me the PlayStation 1 with Gran Turismo 2, and that was the first time where I also not really encountered, but got the chance to play racing games back then. And since then, I always fell in love playing racing games in general, let it be Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, or some other games as well. For me personally, racing games had something else compared to the other games, which were you were able to explore and also get to know so many different cars, which you have never seen on the road before, because of Gran Turismo, I get the chance to know so many Japanese sports cars out there, like the Nissan Skyline, then you have the Mazda RX-7, the Subaru Impreza, so many cars there.
Yes.
And also with so many races you had to do there. Of course, I had to spend lots of time in that game as well, and after that, I was also playing the other Gran Turismo games as well. And that's basically how I started playing with the racing games. And in terms of me starting, my sim racing career, that was when I was playing Gran Turismo 6 back then. Back then, yeah, there were some seasonal events going on, where you were able to do set a lap time on a certain track with a certain car, or you were also able to drift and getting your drift scores. I don't know. There were a time trial attack challenge as well as a drift challenge. And back then I was still using a pad because I just didn't have the money to buy a wheel. I was just playing it for fun, But back then there was a Christmas challenge going on. But that Christmas challenge was an overtaking challenge with the Pagani Huayra at Bathurst. So he had to try to overtake the other AI as fast as possible, but also at the same time try to set the fastest Sector 3, Sector 4 time on that track as well. So for some reason, I was pretty good at it. So I was okay, you guys maybe try to go for a faster lap time, right? Yeah. And in the end, I managed to finish at P5 globally. Wow. And I was the world records with the pad as well. And on that time, the world record has been set by TRL Hall back then, Daniel Holland. And, back then I was also kind of having a look on the leaderboard too, and I always saw the TRL guys being at the top of the leaderboard all the time. So of course I was just for fun asking him hey, is it possible for me to join your team as well, of course, I wasn't thinking about me joining them at all. I was just asking them for fun. And then he was yeah, well, I can ask them about it. And then with that one, I was okay, there's no chance, I was just asking for fun. But after 2 days or something like that, he responded back to me. He was yeah, you can join our team. And I was like, wait, what? It worked? Yeah.
That's brilliant.
I kind of accidentally started my sim racing career with that one, like just by asking him a question where I was initially thinking about me not ever, joining their team at all. So it was kind of funny, and that's basically how I started with my sim racing career as well.
Yeah. And how did you find, because obviously you said you did a lot of like the career mode on Gran Turismo games. What was it when you thought, right, I can go quite fast here? What do you think it was that made you so quick? Or, just as you were going through those games, because obviously some people do them and they struggle, and they're a good few seconds off, and others seem to just naturally have that ability. What was it that you think that enabled you to go so fast?
Ooh, I think when I was playing against the AI, I couldn't really tell whether I was really fast or not, because of course you're playing against the AI, and so you're kind of not being able to measure your skill exactly. So in order to do that, you have to compete against real competitors or real players online. But back then it was impossible to do so. And as I said it before, I was only playing games in general just for fun, because I was thinking like, okay, back then I was still going to school. When I was coming back home, I was doing my homework, learning for the next day. And when I was having free time, you could just play the games just for fun, right? So to answer your question, I couldn't really tell like whether I was fast or not. However, when the Christmas challenge appeared in Gran Turismo 6, and that's why I was like, wait a minute, your time is actually pretty good against the other guys. So that's why I was like kind of starting to grind a little bit more time into it to really set a pretty good lap time in the end. And yeah, that's why I was like, hey, it's not really that bad, is it? So yeah, basically that one.
That's brilliant. And so, how did your career then develop? Because you started, you've won all these big Gran Turismo championships. But was it a matter of that before you won these titles, you were getting kind of close to it? Or was it something that you, as soon as you entered and you got through to the final qualifications required, that's when you just started winning? Or was it a long or a short journey to kind of get to the top?
I think like after joining Team Redline back then, I was like 15 years old also. Of course I had to buy a wheel, and with that one I was also like, well, let's see about that one, because it's like the first time of me ever using a wheel back then. But for some reason, after maybe 1 week or 2 weeks, I actually managed to match the lap times I was doing with the pad before, and and furthermore even being faster with the wheel in the end. And after that one, it has always been like practicing with my teammates along the way, because next to the seasonal events, we were also doing like another championship back in Gran Turismo 6, hosted by GT Planet as well, which was kind of like hosted by ourselves, but more like within the GT Planet thread. That was like the Formula Gran Turismo Championship, and back then, it was a really nice championship actually, and that's where I was also trying to improve on myself, like in terms of the consistency, in terms of the raw speed, and also trying to deliver when it matters in terms of the qualifying. And I was using like that practice session for the next game, which is like Gran Turismo Sport. And for me personally, the physics over there are like much more easy and understandable for me compared to Gran Turismo 6. So like since the very beginning, I always had a good time with that game. And yeah, once we were doing the championships, of course, like everybody else, we had to do the online championships in order to qualify ourselves for the events. And yeah, like before COVID, of course, we were like able to travel around the world. And once you were there at the live event, like on the stage, I mean, of course, the feeling there is like completely different when you're driving from home, because you're like driving in front of so many people. And then there's also like sometimes the cameraman like standing right next to you, putting the camera right in your face, where you're like, mate, leave me alone. I just want to drive, you know. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that sounds right or not, but for me personally, it was a little bit natural with all the things. Like, I don't really know how to explain it, unfortunately.
No. I think we're getting that yeah, you obviously got a huge natural talent, and then when you saw yourself in the finals, you were able to see that you were right up there with these top times, and getting fifth in the world is fantastic. That I only ever once got, I think, on Project Cars. One of the is it the West Azure track? It was took you about 6 minutes or so, and I got the fastest time in that bike only because nobody played it after I did, so it had gone out of fashion. So I had a chance to do it, but it was still quite fun to do all these different tracks. But that's the thing. And so you were going to say?
No. I just wanted to say, like, in theory, you still managed to set the fastest lap time, so you should be proud of it. So
yeah. So thank you. Yeah, I loved Project Cars 1. That was one of my favorite games. It was a really good one of the first games I really got into, especially with the wheel. And it was so much better with the wheel. It was just so much a better game to play. That now people will be asking about that gives us a chance to go into the next quick question. What is your setup that you have at the moment?
At the moment, I have been using the exact same setup, which we are also using for the live events of the FIA Gran Turismo Championships. Like, for any of you who have been watching the broadcast of the Gran Turismo Championships, like, you can see that the simulators we have been using over there, like, we're using a huge TV as well as the seat being like made from Recaro. And basically, after winning the Toyota Supra Cup competition back in 2019, I also won the whole simulator as a whole.
Wow!
So since that, since that moment, I've been using the simulator I won from that competition.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's a fantastic machine. A great bit of equipment there, isn't it? So I always say when we were talking in the build-up earlier, that to see all those the sim rigs that they use for these live events are just amazing, and I can't wait for them to come back again so we can, because I think now after COVID it's going to be even more popular to see these shows. And I think not only will it be out live on TV, but you'll probably have a studio audience too. I would have thought, people watching, and all the pressure will be added to get you to see how well you do, you know. But what a thing. But no, it's quite something. Well, I will quickly go to some of the questions as the chat has been very calm and patient in waiting. Now we've got some crazy questions and we've probably got serious questions, but I will do a random one. Here we are. The first one. It is, what are your favourite brand of cookies, and have they asked you to be sponsored by them?
My favorite brand of cookies, huh? Actually, it may disappoint you, but I don't really have a favorite brand, actually. Like, I just go to the supermarket, and when I see like a package of cookies, I just take these and then eat it afterwards.
And I think there is a part B of that as well. It says, how many cookies does it take to win a race and a world championship?
Well, I think it depends on your mood. Maybe you just eat one, maybe 2, 3. Maybe you're also hungry in the end, so maybe you just eat all the packages. And I know all of the within the package, I mean, but I don't know. Like,
you
it
can
depends
see
on you, yeah.
Now, here's a more serious question from Rascal the Rabbit. And it is, I met and became good friends with Tidgney in Sydney, and there's a great picture of you with Tidgney there in one of the events that you won on your profile. And now Rascal says, I think he's a pleb. And he says, do you think he's a pleb? Don't worry, they can't sue you on this show. I'll take the blame. No, wait.
So we're talking Tidgney here, right?
Tidgney, yeah.
Tidgney, if you're watching this, you're a pleb.
You know. Now I'm going to try and find a serious question. Here we are. Oh, dearie me, I can hardly find one. Here we go. Now, it was actually another one from Rascal the Rabbit. Because you're part of the TRL's team, Have you ever met Max Verstappen in person?
Yes, I did actually. But that was only after me winning the Nations Cup World Championship back in 2019 in Monaco. Like usually, or like originally, we planned to meet each other over there in Monaco, but because of so many guys being there, trying to take a picture with him, we had to cancel it. So that he could also get back home safely, which I could also completely understand. Like I didn't want to try to bother him as well by any means.
Hmm.
But I got another chance to meet him, which was like the FIA prize giving in Paris back then. Of course, like with my profile picture, I also have on Twitter, like on my social media accounts. On that event, I was able to meet him there as well, and he's such a nice guy as well. Also joking around, which you don't really expect from a professional racing driver. But as for him, uh, he's really a good guy. Yeah, it was really a pleasure to meet him there as well.
Yeah, he does sound like a real breath of fresh air, and incredibly competitive. And it's really good to have him racing, because he brings it. He makes the championship really close, and who knows what's going to happen this year. It seems to be absolutely neck and neck, really, as to what's happening. So it is great. Now we've got a great question for Gran Turismo, and this is from Adama Banana. That's a fantastic YouTube name. Given that the FIA is tomorrow, would you say that the X 2019 is a strong car for you?
I think so. Like personally, back then when for the Nations Cup back then before COVID happened, we knew that the Red Bull was always going to be the car being used for the grand finals back then. So you always had to be really fond, or not really fond, but let's say being able to control the car perfectly if you really wanted to have a great chance of winning the Nations Cup overall in the end. But for me personally, when I drive this car, of course, it's like way different compared to the other cars in the game. The way how you have to drive it. But when I drive it, it's like, I don't know, like it gives a really good satisfaction once you nail the lap in the end. Also, like the sound itself, it's also like live sounds pretty good in my opinion. And yeah, unfortunately, like with the dirty air, it's going to be a little bit difficult to follow the cars being in front of you, unless you're driving on a track such as on Sardinia, like on the high-speed tracks. But it's a really fun car actually, and yeah, I like it.
Excellent. Oh, fantastic. Now we've got Zucker 1990 in the chat here, and he is now. I think he said something in German here, and so I apologize in advance for my pronunciation. But it looks like he says, Prinzen Roll. I don't know.
That's a brand. That's a brand for the cookies.
For the cookies, was it?
Yeah.
So we've got all the big guys in the chat as well here tonight, and it says greetings to Michael from Germany, which is fantastic. So it's great to see. We need to get Zucker on the show, but because he hasn't shown his face, nobody knows what he looks like, and he's not wanting to show his face yet on a video. So I'm sure when he you might know him, but we don't. So we'll have to wait and see what he looks like, perhaps. But no, that's the thing. Now you've been to these incredible events. Tell the chat here and those watching, what was it like going to your first big live Gran Turismo final?
Wow, the very first one. The very first one for me was the Salzburg World event in 2018. For me personally, wow, so many things were going on that trip alone. Because like before that, I was only able to travel to Turkey to visit my relatives over there, such as my grandparents and my other cousins and uncles over there. So of course I was like really looking forward to visit or like travel to a different country than Turkey, But on my way back then, like not over there back then, I mean, like it was the first time for me to ever travel alone as well. Like I was like, okay, wait, I think you have to check in first. After that, you have to go to the security control, and then going up to the gate, and then you have to wait for your plane there. So it was the first time for me ever doing that. I was feeling a little bit insecure in the end. However, once I managed to get past everything and just waiting for the gate, there was also like a funny story actually. Like I was just simply waiting for my plane, and I saw like two policemen just walking around and checking everything. And then for some reason, they decided to check on me instead, and I was like the only one who has been checked out. Where they were like, "Yeah, can you please show your your ID as well as your tickets, please?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." But then, of course, in my mind, I was like, "Why are you guys only checking on me instead, and not also on the other guys?" But and I was still in Germany, mind you. Okay, but yeah, that was like the first time I was feeling like, okay, what a great start into my first event. And then I think we were in Munich first, because from Munich we were driving with the bus over to Salzburg, and it was also great to also meet all the other players you have been racing against online, and then over there also seeing like the Red Bull venue, which is like the Hanwha 7, I believe. And there I was also seeing like the I think it's like a concept car of the X2010 Red Bull, which we were able to see in Gran Turismo 5 back then. I think it's been made out of wood, like there was no engine, no mechanical parts inside of it. But apart from that, also meeting like the polyphony team, and then racing there on the stage, winning my first trophy on the Manufacturers Cup event with Andrew for Team Nissan. So of course I was like happy with it, and like the trip itself, it was like really amazing. Like we were also able to see a little bit of the city itself, Salzburg. Like to any of you who wants to go over there, I can just recommend the place 100%. Like it's truly beautiful, especially as I truly love the nature itself. Man, the color of the nature is so clean. But like if any of you who want to go there, I can recommend it at 100%.
Yeah, and of course you went to New York as well, didn't you, for one of the main finals? And you met all the. There's a great picture of you with I cannot pronounce his name. The chap who made Gran Turismo, the top chap. Yamachiso, that's the one. I'll let you pronounce that. Because I'm afraid I won't even try and pronounce that one. And of course, when he's the most famous chap of Gran Turismo, who has made that game what it is. It must have been a great experience to actually meet them all. And did you have any particular questions for them when you actually met them? Was there anything that you wanted to ask them?
Wow. Like when I think about it, I mean, of course, there were like some questions I was asking them about it. But it was more like some internal questions, like which I'm not really allowed to say, I think. However, of course, there were like some other questions as well, such as like when you guys made Gran Turismo before back then, like how was it like for you to make this game? Like were you also trying to go for a different route back then, like stuff like that,
Yeah.
And he was also answering all of these and also showing some behind of the scenes maybe, and with me also being able to meet their polyphony studio back then. Like I was also one of the few ones who also managed to see the old studio back then in Tokyo before they moved out to a different studio. And of course you also have like the development area where they're basically developing the game. Of course, I'm also not allowed to say what's kind of like in there, but when you see that, because for me personally, I didn't really see myself as a competitor, but moreover like a fan, because I've been growing up with Gran Turismo in the end. And when I see that, of course, I'm like, wow, so amazing. So stuff like that.
Ah, fantastic. Now, I'll go to one of the questions regard from Voter Racing. It says, what is your favourite car and track combination?
In GT Sport?
In GT Sport, yeah.
I mean, it has to be, like with the class, I know it, certainly. Like Group 3 at Suzuka. That's like my favorite combination. But with the car, like, it's going to be a difficult one. Like, of course, I'm a Subaru fan. Also, like, loving Nissan as well. So I think I gotta say, like, the Subaru Group 3 at Suzuka. I don't know, like, if it's like a certain car, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Like, I only know it with the class, that's for sure. But with the car itself,
Well, that takes us to our next question. Because one of the questions was there, you have a huge love for Japan and for Subaru. And how did that start?
I don't know if I can say that I have like a huge love for Japan or not. But let's say I really love the Japanese cars in general. Because since I was little and also playing Gran Turismo 2 back then, of course, you were all like mostly driving with Japanese cars back then. Like there were so many different models, car manufacturers back then, which I have never even seen in Germany before. Like, of course, I was like still a little kid back then. But even there, I knew what's, for example, a BMW was looking like, and Mercedes was looking like, and so on. But there, of course, like with the game giving me so many chances to try out these cars back then. I don't know. I really liked their design, the way how they were looking like, the way how they were also driving in the end, and also like moreover when I grew up and also like playing the other Gran Turismo games in the end, and also like watching some other videos on YouTube. I don't know, like if you would even give me like 100,000 years or so, I would still buy maybe a Subaru in the end.
Well, we grew up with Subarus. I had good friends who had Subaru Legacies in the early 90s, and they were great cars. And we used to take them. We had a farm, and we used to take them in the farm fields and rally them right around when the fields had been harvested, and you had the kind of stubble ground, and we would rally them around the fields, and just so much fun because they were kind of indestructible and kind of great to drive. You know, they just kept going, which was always fun. So no, they were there. I can see why you like Subaru. They're just great cars, and unfortunately now they've kind of killed off all of the really good ones here in Europe, because for a while, even 10 to 15 years ago, you had WRXs and all these amazing machines, and they've kind of you can't really get those anymore. They're just making kind of SUVs and kind of people carrier type cars rather than actual kind of really nice rally cars and fast performance cars these days. Maybe you can still get them in Japan, but they certainly don't seem to have them here. But just while we're on that, for everyone who's watching today, which is great to see you all, if you like sim racing interviews, we've got a big back catalogue here on the Car Sim and Race Driver Show. So to make sure you never miss one of these interviews, like Mikhail's good friend Valerio Gallo, who was the Olympic champion, he was on about a month ago. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and you'll never miss an interview and a video as well. And you can also see my attempt at trying to be a sim racer when I play GT Sport, usually once a week, and try and race and different things. But yes, so now back to the show and back to the questions. Now, Glasgow Red has asked, do you play other racing games besides GT Sport? And if so, which is best?
Like, you only said racing games, right? So it does need to be a sim game. So I will say Need for Speed.
Yeah.
But also, what is it? Back then, when the servers haven't been shut down, I was also playing Drive Club a lot. Oh man, this game was also truly beautiful itself. Like the way how they were basically making these graphics and the cars in the end. It was such an underrated game, unfortunately, back then, but I was also playing that game a lot. But I mean, next to GT, I think recently I've been playing like Hot Pursuit Remastered a lot, like with some of the other guys within the GT community. And it's kind of fun to play this game.
Yeah. And do you have do you play other games as well that are not racing games?
I do. But it's more like some RPG games in the end. But also, what is it? Yeah, like for example, I've been playing, what is it, Nier Replicant recently. It's also like an RPG game. And then also like Nier Automata. Then what is it? Then I'm also like a huge One Piece fan, which is like also an anime and manga series. Then we also have like the Pirate Warrior series there from One Piece. I was playing like those games a lot too. Like if I didn't want to play any racing games in general. But I don't know. My love is more like towards the racing games. I knew that, what is it, when I was still going back to school. Like my friends, they were mostly playing like Call of Duty, you know. I mean, of course, I also had the game back then because we were also doing like some private matches, some public matches as well. It was also fun and nice, but I didn't really get the hype behind the shooting games, and I was still sticking with the racing games because I don't know. For me personally, I had the most fun playing these kind of games back then. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good going, isn't it? Because it's always a great range of games, whether it be PS4 or now, of course, everyone's on their PCs playing these games as well. So there's so many more that are out there. But Gran Turismo still seems to be a great game for PlayStation folk, isn't it? And it'll be interesting to see what the next one will be like when they launch that. Hopefully, maybe next year. Which will be something because everyone's waiting and waiting. They're kind of desperate just to see it come out and start playing it, isn't they? That now here we've got a chap. I'll just quickly go right up to where it was. Now where we are from Rascal the Rabbit. Here we are. I've got my N4 in speaking Japanese, and I got to talk to Kaz in Sydney. As he's a chronic smoker like I was then, I found his passion really infectious. Is he always so excited?
Yes, he is. I can tell you that he's one of the most down-on-earth person I've ever met in my life, actually. He's such a humble and nice person in general, and also a person which I admire in the end, because he made this game possible in the end. And I don't know, like in my opinion, he also made the whole sim racing scene even more popular in the end with the FIA championships in general. Because of course, like I've also been watching some of the iRacing and the other sim racing events as well. But in terms of the broadcast, the way how they're kind of like streaming and showing these races, in my opinion, Gran Turismo was still like unmatched out of all the other sim racing games out there. And it also it gives us, the players, the other sim racers, also a chance to be noticed in the end. That we're also like playing an esports game, which is not League of Legends or Call of Duty or something else. But you can still watch it because it's still like entertaining and also nice to watch. Like how Tom Brooks always likes to say like, "Oh, big drama, big drama." So yeah.
It's great fun, isn't it? I mean, the racing can be so close and full of drama that it's right, isn't it? These things happen, and you hear people take a breath as they see an overtake or a shunt or something like that, isn't it? It can certainly be pretty close. But we've got a good question here from Rumar. It says, regarding setup, do you prefer understeer or oversteer as a handling balance if you can't get it neutral?
I think it depends on the track, in my opinion. Like, for me personally, if it's a track such as Interlagos, I prefer oversteering than understeering because I want to have like such a nice flow through the corners, especially in Sector 2. But on other tracks such as the Nordschleife, I prefer understeering over there because you have like so many bumps and uneven surface on the track. And with oversteering, the car behavior becomes more unpredictable in the end. And with understeering, you can control your car even better there. So I think it also depends on which kind of car you're driving on a certain track. Yeah. So I think you also have to kind of look into that one. But for me personally, I think it depends on the car as well as on the track.
Now that is a good answer. Now this is the time when I I ask all the people in the chat and those watching to get their pens and pencils, get their pen and paper out, because now you're going to reveal, hopefully, your tips for driving success in sim racing. So if you had the top, we'll start with top three kind of driving tips for being successful at sim racing. What would they be?
Okay. Number 1, cookie. Number 2, cookie. Number 3, cookie. No, I'm joking.
There'll be people that have written that down, you know. They will have written that down.
No, but no, seriously, I think it's like more than 3 points, actually. Like for me personally.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, there are like so many things you have to consider into if you want to improve on yourself. Like first of all, you have to have the motivation, the determination, and like the patience if things doesn't go well for you straight away, and also like try not to give up on yourself. That's like something which you have to have when you try to improve on yourself in general. But furthermore, like if you want to try to improve on yourself on the track, like not on the track, like in the game, I mean, what I always do if there's like an unknown car and track combination coming up, I always have like a look on the leaderboard, like to analyze the top lap, like the best lap time being set by the best driver so far, to see which driving line he's taking there, at which braking marker he's braking, like with kind of gears he's going through the corners, at which time he's shifting up, at which time he's shifting down, like those kind of things. I'm kind of like trying to analyze these kind of things so that I don't need to waste so much time into something where I'm trying to figure out, okay, wait a minute, do I have to brake at this braking marker or not? It's because I always like to try to reach my goal and faster, you know. And that's how I always do it. And in the end, when I try it by myself, of course you can't get it. Like you can't copy it straight away. Of course, you have to try and get used to it. But once you get used to it, I would also try to include your own driving style into it, because everybody has a different, unique driving style. And once you get used to it, I would try to practice it a little bit more. Also try to reach for the consistency. Like unfortunately, so many players these days, they only try to focus themselves on one lap pace only, which is like the time trial events. But if you really want to be competitive in the championships, of course, the qualifying is important. I'm not saying that. But for the race, the consistency is so much more important in my opinion. And that's what I've been working on for a long time. And what so many people also underestimate is, if you have the chance to be in a lobby with one of the fastest players, then try to learn from them, like what they're doing differently on the race. So because only if you're driving amongst the best, you can improve on yourself in that way. Because you have to try to go beyond the limit, beyond your limit. And in my opinion, that's a way how to improve on yourself. Because for me personally, as I said it back then, like I was only playing it for fun. Even when I was doing the seasonal events back then in GT6, I was always like around 2 or 3 seconds off the pace. But of course, setups was still like available back then. And I was only using the stop setup as well as using a certain car and just getting my gold and the rewards, and that's it. Yeah. But if you really want to improve on yourself, you gotta sacrifice a little bit for something, like which is like the patience, and you also have to be motivated in doing so, determined, those kind of things. And if it doesn't go well for you, then just take a break and continue with it afterwards.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, it's really good, really, really good stuff. And great pointers to help people go faster and faster. And we've got a great question from Fionn McCall. It is, here, I'll highlight it. It is, it's inspiring to watch you drive. How many hours do you think you have put in to get where you are?
Oh, how many? Well, first of all, thank you for watching me driving. And secondly, I don't know how many hours I've put to where I am at the moment, but recently, when I'm trying to practice myself for some of the FIA races, mostly it's also due to my mechanical engineering studies, as well as me trying to do some other things as well, like me, because of that, not having a lot of time. That's why I always try to go with the method I was explaining earlier, like with analyzing the lap times, so that I don't need to waste a lot of time into it already, so that I can already know, oh, okay, so you have to drive like that, sort of. So with that, it's like around. I mean, of course, it also depends on the car and track, because on some car and track combinations, I'm more comfortable with some of the other ones. But because of that, it's maybe like 30 minutes up to 2 hours maybe per day.
Wow.
And I think that's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah, so that's pretty good going. Now we've got some great quotes here from many of the people in the chat, and they think you're what they call a Jedi of GT Sport. So you're like like the Star Wars character of GT Sport. They up in that top
Okay.
in that top part there. You can't get any higher than that. And here we have another question here. In GT Sport, do you drive more by feel or by mind?
I would actually say both. When it comes down to qualifying, of course, that's like with my mind, because you have to try to set the fastest lap time possible. But as for the race, that's why you have to use your mind instead, because you have to think ahead in terms of the strategy, and also like if you are about to get involved in a battle with somebody else, then you also have to think about, is it worth to battle against him for right now, or if you try to stay behind of him, so that the two of you can basically work together in order to catch up to P1, or maybe not losing a lot of time, and then therefore battle against each other towards the end of the race. And for me personally, I kind of like to use my mind for the race, because it's kind of fun to also sit behind the wheel and then try to be so focused with the driving, but also at the same time being like, okay, you have to try to find a good strategy in order to win the race possibly in the end.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, for me personally, I have to use both. Oh,
Fantastic.
that's what I'm using. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, that's great. No, that is super. Now, here's a good question for you. What is your dream car? And there's no money involved, so in terms of anything at all, there's no limits. What would you like?
I guess some of you may disappoint. It's not going to be a Subaru. For me personally, because as you said it before, like if the money restriction is not involved, the Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR. That car is so beautiful. Like when I was a kid, I was also playing Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit, and when I saw that car in that game, like that game, they were also like featuring something where you were basically able to have a look around these cars in terms of some with some pictures being given. And when I saw that car, I was like, wow, so beautiful. Like, of course, I will never have the money to own a car, let alone like paying for the insurance and for the taxes. But like, if money was the issue here, save the Mercedes CLK GTR.
Fantastic. Oh, yeah, all these cars nowadays are just getting more and more incredible. And it's kind of, especially with these kind of V8 hybrids and all sorts of stuff that they're bringing out, it's still great to get a car that sounds good, but also kind of looks amazing as well. Now, we've got a question from Zocker 1990. And he says here, I'll highlight it here, have you ever had a problem with getting gold in any license tests or mission of the old Gran Turismo games? And which took you the most tries?
I mean, I would lie if I said that I wouldn't have any problems in the end, because when I was a kid, of course, I wasn't as good as I am nowadays, but when I was a kid back then, Of course, I only try to do the licenses just once and then be done with it so that I can enter these races. But once I knew that, now I mean, wait, I didn't know that actually. I just wanted to try out and see what happens if I get gold on every single license, because I was browsing on the internet to search it out. So, but once I did that, I was like, oh wait, you can win additional cars.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then for Gran Turismo 2, of course, I wasn't getting gold on the first try, but like when I saw like Jimmy streaming like the old Gran Turismo games where he was trying to set gold on each license test, and I think for one license only he took like 3 hours only.
Wow.
And when I was doing it in Gran Turismo 1, I think for me personally, I only took 30 minutes to get gold everywhere. And that's why I
Wow.
was like, Jimmy, why are you so like kind of like struggling yourself in here?
That's the
But
best way to do it.
yeah, and then as for GT4, I think the hardest one has to be like Mission 34, like with the SLR McLaren at the Nordschleife. That's for me personally, at least. And but for me personally, the hardest challenge I've ever done so far is in Gran Turismo 5 even, the Sebastian Vettel challenge.
Yeah.
Because back then I was still using a pad, and also like being a teenager or so, so I still didn't have the skills I have nowadays. But also before that, mind you, like I was playing Gran Turismo 5 without using PlayStation Network. With that, I mean I was using the version of the game, which is like the game release version, like without any patch notes and so on. And I also heard afterwards that they made the Vettel challenge a little bit easy afterwards, because I think so many people were complaining about it.
Yeah.
And then once I was trying to do the Vettel challenge without any updates, I was like, oh my god, it's really hard.
Goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing it the hard way for sure. Not
Yeah.
having any updates. But my goodness. So no, yeah, but to be able to complete them all and get gold, that is pretty good. I always remember being annoyed at the long races. You have to do it like an hour on some of the career things, and if you spun off or crashed, and then that was it. You had to start all again, and you're about 40 minutes into the whole thing, and you have to start. It's always a pain. But no, they were good. Now we have got R8G Tusu, I think it is, who has got a question for you. My question for Mikhail: are you going to come back next year in the FIA competition? Saying good vibes.
I would just say hopefully, but I can't promise it, because I didn't know how the future is going to look like, especially as I'm so close to finishing with my bachelor degree for my mechanical engineering studies. I also want to try to focus myself more on my studies instead. But however, if I have the time to still do the FIA championship right next to it, then of course I'll be trying to commit there once again. But as it stands right now, I can't tell you, unfortunately. I mean, hopefully, yes, because after doing the Olympics back then, like the Olympic Virtual Series, I don't know, I realized that I was missing the races again by a lot. Like I was like, I was really like, even though I missed the overall victory by a small margin, I was like, I really missed the racing actually. So I mean, hopefully I can try to compete on the championship again, but I can't promise it.
Yeah. So almost breaking news there. You almost heard it first on the Car 7 Race Driver Show. There's a possibility you might be back next year. So that'll be the headline coming off the show tonight.
Big news, big news.
Exactly. A banner. I should have that rolling news across the screen. But no, it's fantastic. And what would you say? I mean, when you go to, for somebody who's hoping that they might eventually get to a final of Gran Turismo, what would be your kind of tips of how to approach an event like that?
For me personally, I would suggest you to be as normal as you can be. Like with that, I mean, just imagine yourself driving at home and also being like, okay, I'm just going to try and practice for a race, because for me personally, when I'm thinking like that, I'm more calm before having the qualifying session or the races, like the race start, I mean. But also at the same time, I would also try to suggest you to enjoy the whole event, because you have been chosen to be one of the chosen competitors for the events. So basically that means you're also one of the fastest ever.
Yeah.
So, and because of that, I would also suggest you to still obviously giving your best, because you also want to try to win it, right? But also on the other hand, trying to have as much fun as you can and also try to
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because you never know when these kind of events may end in the future. So always try to enjoy it as much as you can.
Fantastic. Now, one of your famous quotes from when you win these great events is the smooth operator. I'm not going to try and sing that. And the question is, where did that come from?
I think it came mostly because of Carlos Sainz saying it during the Formula One race. And I think that happened shortly before us having the New York World event, and I was like, with me racing with Super GT on the same time, and us also winning the event, just for fun, I was kind of like shouting, "Smooth operator!" So yeah, I think that's why it kind of started off.
It was very good. I remember watching that on one of the live events, and the commentator said that's what you're going to be known for. When you that's your quote that goes with you. It's it's almost like hammer time with Lewis Hamilton. You're going to have your that's the one. But no, it is absolutely fantastic. Now I'll quickly highlight this one here. Oh, well, the wrong one. Hang on. Here we are. Here it is from RG Tusu. I hope I pronounced that correctly. We all need to race against a driver like Mikel, to continue to improve ourselves. We all learned a lot from him, and he gives us a lot of motivation. With that, you got this as his title there. So that shows you've got a lot of respect in the sim racing world.
Thank you, Baguette. But imagine this being a baguette for you, so take it, please. So, no, but it's an honor to hear that from you, mate. I mean, for me personally, I don't see myself anything special at all. Because sometimes I also see myself being extremely lucky on some of these races, which were really crucial for me. And in my opinion, like lots of people can also achieve what I have achieved so far. But I mean, of course, it's always nice to hear that. I mean, unfortunately, I'm one of those people who don't really know how to handle with compliments. So I don't really know how to be like. But still, thank you, mate. Merci.
And I was going to say on that note of obviously competing against the top guys, is there anyone out there that you found like the toughest to beat, or the one that's giving you the most satisfaction in saying yes, I actually beat him? Or is there? I know obviously you have a good camaraderie with everybody, but was there a particular person that you found that was almost the target? You needed to beat this person, or you wanted to try and do your best to beat them?
Actually, not really, because for me personally, as I said it before, like everybody is fast or like can be fast. Like with that is fast. Wow, wait, let me say it again, please. Okay, with what I mean with everything is fast, I mean like when I'm racing against the other guys on the main events, such as on the World events or on the World finals. Of course, you have to be one of the fastest ever to qualify yourself for it, right? And as you never know what may happen during these races, in my opinion, you should never underestimate anybody there. Never. Because if you do that, that's going to be one of the biggest mistakes you can ever do before you even did the first race. Because you're like, okay, this one guy is not really that fast, so he shouldn't really be that big of a problem to me. But it turns out, like, just for the imagination here, I mean, that this guy is maybe the reason for you to lose the race in the end. I don't know. And for me personally, I only try to look after myself to give, what is it, the best as, what is it, the best performance which I can. But of course, like there are of course like some drivers out there who are also like the favorites to win it. If you also watch and look closely how they have been driving so far. But as I said it before, I think for me personally, it's just I don't want to underestimate anybody, and of course looking after myself so that I can perform the best as I can. And I think it's also like a huge disrespect in my opinion if you're also like, hey, I just beat this person, but what about the other guys? As I said it before, it's like you driving against the fastest drivers on that competition right now, you know. And for me, it wouldn't be like, hey, I just beat this person, but being like, I just beat everybody there. But for me personally, even doing that, I don't know. I mean, except for the Monaco 2019, where I was like, yeah, like going Super Saiyan mode. I didn't really like to celebrate a lot, because you never know what will happen afterwards, you know. Like, for example, if I win the semifinals, I can be all like, yes, I won the semifinal, but in the end, I had a shit race, if I could say that. Oh, no, okay, wait, I take it back. I had a bad race, okay? Because we have to be a little bit polite here. But, and also for me personally, I don't know. It's like, once again, with the disrespect, because so many people who managed to qualify themselves for it, they were also like, they are also going to be sad in the end. And if I'm like, hey, I just won the competition, and then I don't know. I think they would be a little bit more sad in the end. I don't like that.
No, that sounds very respectful, to be fair, and a very nice way to deal with, to be competitive but not to be big-headed, which is really important. Which is, I know when we watch like Grand Prix and they're jumping around on the podium because they've won a championship, you can obviously understand it's like Ocon winning there in Hungary. I mean, that was an incredible thing, and he was running up the pit lane to see everyone, and that you can understand how incredible it must be to win something like that. But no, it sounds very good. Now we've got a great question here from Mew79. It's good to see you, Mew. Question for Michael: how do you approach your races, and how do you save tires so well?
Well, the question with the approaching here is like mentally or like with the practicing?
I suppose let's go with the mental side.
As with the mental side, it's like, I think we just said it before, it's like more about me thinking about this race going to be like a practice race for me. But also on the other hand, it's like me trying to have as much fun as I can, because that's why I'm playing a game, right? Like in first place, I mean. But also on the other hand, it's like, what is it? Let me think. Like, I think that's basically it with the approaching. Sorry. But
and the other part was, how do you save tires so well?
With the second question, the mistake what so many people do during the races, that they always want to try to drive as fast as they can in order to pull away from the guys behind of them. And for me personally, if there's like a race which includes a high tire wear multiplier, for me personally, you have to think ahead, in my opinion, which is like, okay, try to use a different brake balance, which will not, wear the front or the rear tire wear a lot more, and also being like so smooth on the braking as well as on the steering input. Because if you have your car under control, you are able to save your tires by a lot in the end. And even if you are driving behind somebody, like there are like two options. The first one is, you want to try to battle against the driver being in front of you in order to obtain his position and then drive away? Or do you want to stay behind of him using the slipstream and then therefore saving your tires a lot more? Because if you're using his slipstream, of course you're fast on the straight line at the beginning, or like at the end of the straight line, I mean. But because of that, you're also able to brake a little bit earlier to kind of like lift off, and instead of braking it around, 90% even, you only have to brake at around 60 or 70% instead. And with that kind of way, that's how I always do it. I can try to save my tires better. And of course, it depends. And it also differs from each car and track combination. But for the Group 3 class, for example, that's how I always do it. And once again, you don't win the race after lap 1. You win the race once you see the checkered flag. So you have to think ahead all the time. And that's what I always want to try to do. And it's also the same with the fuel saving. Same story there. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, that is really, really good. That now we've got a good question here to kind of sum up, as we've been on air live now for an hour, and you've had lots and lots of questions and done incredibly well answering and putting up with us all. But one of the questions is, with all the success that you've had, especially in GT Sport, what has been your most memorable moment?
With the memorable moment, does it need to be me winning a championship, or can it be something else as well?
It could be something else as well. The choice is yours.
Okay. I think if I just leave my success on the championships as a whole, because I think everyone has been kind of unique to me, the way how I managed to win the event in the end. For me personally, it's more over like traveling around the world, as well as meeting like the whole community, as well as the Polyphony family. Like for me personally, I never really had the chance to travel around the world due to, let's say, not really having a lot of money for it, if I can say that. And with the whole championship itself, it kind of gave me the opportunity to still see the world, sort of, Like I was able to travel to Spain, to Italy, France, Monaco, UK, New York, Japan, and to so many other countries where I'm like, wow, if it wasn't for Gran Turismo, then I would still, be here, where I'm like, okay, I've only been in Germany and to Turkey before, and that's it. And it's also really nice to see so many different countries, as well as the cultures over there, and also seeing so many different new things which you've never seen in your life before. And for me personally, as I'm also like a hobby photographer, it's also nice to take some pictures over there. It's also like a nice memory for yourself. And yeah, once the COVID situation is over, hopefully we can travel around the world again, and maybe also with some of you guys being in the chat. But I think that's like the most memorable thing for me personally.
Fantastic. No, it's really, really good. And I was going to say, for everyone who's watching tonight, we have your YouTube channel and details and Twitter details in the description, I believe. I think Richie's just put them in the chat as well. So if you haven't already subscribed to Mikhail's channel, you can get the link in the description below, and please make sure that you do. And if you're watching for the first time tonight, please subscribe to this channel if you like sim racing interviews like the one you've just seen. We've got all of your friends. We've got Valerio Gallo, who we interviewed about a month ago. We've got Super GT. We've had lots of fantastic drivers. Some you might know, some you might not know, but there's a wonderful variety of sim racers. And certainly, in closing tonight, Mikhail, what would you like to say to your community of loyal fans that has been following you? Do you have anything to leave them with tonight?
I mean, I can try it. Nah, but seriously, I mean, thank you all who have been supporting me since the beginning of my journey. I mean, maybe I may not show it all the time, but it really means a lot to me. And like when I'm always, attending the events, I always want to try to give it my best, but not only for myself, but also for my family, for my friends, as well as for you guys over there. And hopefully we can also see each other on the track. Like with that, I mean in GT Sport, maybe on some of the public lobbies, but also maybe on the FIA championships as well. And maybe we can also meet each other in one of these events as well. But what is more important is that we all have to try and stay safe for now because of COVID. And even though on some countries the amount of people getting infected in the end may decrease day per day, please do not underestimate the safety measures, which is like still wearing a mask and so on. Because recently, like I also had like another issue recently where some of those people who didn't want to wear a mask were causing a lot of troubles, and personally I don't like to see that. But moreover, stay safe, everybody, and then hopefully, I'll be able to also stream some of these races again, and stay safe.
Fantastic. And no doubt we'll be watching you race, and I'm sure to victory in these big championships if you decide to come back after you've done your engineering degree. And one last final question. I have to leave this to WRL Podium, who always asks a great question. And I hope this will work out. I hope there won't be any issues with the language and all this. For the differences, it says, would you trade your cookies for pickles in the freezer?
I wouldn't.
No, that's an easy question. That's fantastic. Well, a big thank you to everyone who's been watching tonight. It's great to have your comments and your questions. And this will go on as a podcast early next week. We'll be sending that out. But of course, our biggest thanks to Mikhail Hizal for coming on the show tonight. Stay on the line just now, but it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you as a guest. And I think people have seen just how you approach racing, a wonderful mental attitude, and very much deservedly successful for your career. And we wish you all the best for your continuing career, whether it be in engineering and also in sim racing. You've certainly become a legend of the sport, and it's fantastic to have you on the show, and you're welcome back anytime. So I'll close the show there with our crazy quote, and it is probably against all sense when it comes to sim racing, but I'll say it anyway. It is: drive fast and try not to crash, and if you do, you might just win the race at the first corner. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye just now.